What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Palantir. Give you a quick overview of some of the data points, break it down on what is really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Palantir is up 3.42%, $80.87 the low, $84.19 the high. So it does look as though it wants to hit a new 52-week high going into next week. Next week is their earnings, so this essentially is a lot of FOMO, but it's backed by big money. Big money is definitely driving it higher. A couple of things to note before I get into a lot of the data points. PCE just came out, kind of in line with expectations. Markets taking that as somewhat as a good positive. So there's that kind of really laying that foundation, that attributing factor to really push a lot of stocks higher. But in case you do not know, they do have their earnings on February the 3rd after hours. 11 cents is that earnings per share, and that's based on, I believe, 17 analysts, and the revenue is $775.91 million. Over the last 90 days, 13 positive, 0 negative revisions to the earnings per share. And just to give you a quick overview, so that 11 cents does represent a 39.44 or 49% year-over-year growth, low end of 10, high end of 12, and then the revenue does represent 27.54% year-over-year growth. Going into this upcoming week though, looking at the implied move, roughly around 12.11%. So definitely is a very volatile earnings, but the last several have been home runs. So this column right here does show 2 weeks post earnings, and when SoFi does hit a home run, it goes up massively. So 47.94% was that 2-week move post earnings. Last one, 34.9, the one before that. It also did have, it looks like the Q2 earnings in 2023 went up 52.97. So yeah, I think a lot of people are having high expectations for this earnings, because that 12% does equate to roughly around $10, $11 in either direction. And when this was around like $65, I've been stating that I feel post earnings it was going to go to roughly between 90 and 95, and it looks like that is going to come to fruition as long as Palantir doesn't really drop the ball on the earnings. But I don't think that there's been any real indication on that could happen. Analysts, though, are very much stubborn. There was a new rating that came out yesterday. Doesn't logically make all that much sense to do a rating like 1 day or one trading day before the earnings. Just it shows some manipulation if you make or whatever. But Brent, who has a 61% success rating from Jefferies, did give a sell $28 price target. As a consensus, 51.50 is that price target, representing a 38.6% downside. But I feel post earnings, this is where you're going to get a lot more 90s and more. Even recently, there was Daniel Ives with a $90 buy rating. And yeah, honestly, it's justified in my opinion. I know some people might disagree with me on that. Just the fact that Palantir, for looking at the multiple standpoint, is overdone. But I think just Wall Street and a lot of people aren't really able to fathom like the innovative company that Palantir is and what that does equate to. And so yeah, like I mentioned, it looks as though it wants to really hit a new high. So the 52-week high right now is $84.80. No actual news from Palantir itself today, no SEC filings. Looking at shorts, so 3.83% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 80.25 million shares. So this isn't a squeeze play. I think you know that by now, but it's good to analyze what they're doing. So shorts are actually increasing roughly around 25,000 shares going into clearly next week. So their earnings. So kind of interesting for that. But like I said, I think just shorts have been, whoever shorts Palantir, it might seem logical and using kind of just looking at the multiple standpoint, but at the end of the day, you're going to lose a lot of money, and you would have lost a lot of money. And one thing that I kind of find interesting is this right here. So through Seeking Alpha, you can post like analysis and whatever. So Palantir, 3 reasons to short the stock. Strong sell, and that was posted yesterday. So yeah, you have polar opposites of what the market feels is going to happen with Palantir. So what's your viewpoint on that? Looking at options, just in the first 30 minutes of the trading day, 32 million in calls, 6.83 in puts. 55% of all the options being done so far are optimistic in nature, and basically looks as though there's a anticipation for it to be above roughly around that $90 range for next week. Random pockets, so it looks like around $100 is anticipated. And then the bears are looking as though they feel it's kind of nothing really correlated, like but roughly sub $70. So like I mentioned, like that 12% implied move kind of encumbers both spectrums for the most part, but these are all the transactions occurring on the secondary market above $100,000. So big money very much getting into Palantir, and like I said, just the 30 minutes that it's been trading so far, absolute craziness. But aside from that, with that 84 and change, it is trading between this R2 and this R1. So 82.66 is going to be the next strong target slash resistance. And then as far as this, $87.10 is going to be the next strong target slash resistance, followed by 94 and change. So that's where potentially their earnings could go, in my opinion, is roughly around that kind of range. But analysts definitely, I don't know, it's an interesting stock. It's fun to speculate on where it might be going, but like it's dumb to bet against it. That's just, I don't know. But anyways, aside from all that, on the actual chart itself, the only negative thing I do want to bring up is the fact that it is very overbought. And sometimes nothing really wrong with that. Stocks can kind of stay in an overbought status for a while, but generally the first sign of weakness, whether it be on a macro standpoint or specific to the company, this is where you could see some volatility in the downside. So with their earnings right around the corner, if they do somehow drop the ball on something, then this is where, again, you could see a little bit of a push lower. But it is above the ALMA 50-day moving average. Honestly, there's not really much negative things to really bring up about this. Quickly, actually going back over here, on a side note, if you do want all this information to be completely free, so analyst ratings, forecasts, ownership, everything under the sun, take a look at IBKR for it to be all completely free. So definitely take advantage of that. But one thing I do want to bring up is quarter over quarter. It looks as though institutions did increase their position by 22.75%. Retail, on the other hand, did reduce their position by 14.48. So I see this as optimistic because I generally like to invest in companies that are primarily held by institutions. Kind of, it's any retail driven stock is usually seen as just memes, and at the same time, you also have shorts trying to target those. So this is a very exciting stock to be in. And like I said, I still feel that there's a hell of a lot more upside. So let me know your viewpoint. Do you disagree? Do you think that, are you kind of betting against it? Like, what's your general thoughts? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon. Launched it roughly around 2 months ago. I give a lot of buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely bangers and like on point. So definitely worthwhile to go over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.